The holidays are right around the corner, and with resin printers coming down in price considerably, that means they might be on the wish list of your loved ones. Well, there's a lot out there to choose from, some considerably worse than others. So let's go through my top 5-ish at $500 or less. Let's get into it. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. And if you're new here and you're looking all about resin 3D printers that are cheap, affordable, and pretty darn good, make sure to leave a like and get subscribed. We would appreciate your support. We got some awesome printers for you, over 5. Don't worry, there's always honorable mentions in these. You guys know how this goes. The one thing that bothers me about resin is that the education around the material itself has not changed. Resin is incredibly toxic, especially some of these crazier engineering resins, by the way. Review coming soon on the Meyer Makes resin. Because remember, resin is toxic. And I don't care if it says water washable. I don't care if it says plant-based. It is still toxic as of recording this video. So if you do get water washable resin and you rinse it in water, you must still evaporate off that water, cure out the resin before you're able to dispose of everything. Otherwise, it's literally deadly. So please don't do that. And I know I'm starting off a top 5 video with a call to action and, well, another call to action about wearing your PPE, gloves, mask, lab coat. That one just adds street cred. It's worth it. Links in the description. I don't want to see more people get hurt. It is insane how easy it is to get injured from resin. And while incidental contact early on may not hurt you, over time you will become sensitive to the material and it will cause allergic reactions. And in some cases, if it's left on your skin long enough, can literally cause that area of your skin to melt away. Now, I don't know about you, but my skin melting is not a normal thing. Wear your protective gear. Be safe about it. Enough of this. Let's get into the top 5. Let's start with my number 5 choice. Very similar to the one that you see here. This is a Anycubic Photon Mono X. The one that we recommend at our number 5 spot is the Mono X 6K. So just put a little 6K or something down there. Promise, it's the same thing. A mid-tier size resin printer, the Photon Mono X 6K comes in at under $500, somewhere in the $450 to $470 mark when it's on sale. Current pricing will vary a little bit based on where you're located, so shop around. The machines are basically the same no matter where you get them from. They have a build volume of 197 by 122 by 245 millimeters, making lots and lots of room on that build plate for you to print even pretty large objects. For those that need imperial numbers, that's 9.6 tall and 7.8 by 4.8 length and width. So pretty good size machine when you compare it up against something like a Elegoo Mars, which is obviously quite a bit smaller. So understand that yes, it is going to take up more space. It does have a very high pixel density with that 6K screen, although Elegoo does have 8K variants. We'll get to those a little bit later in the video. It is a monochrome screen, and all the printers that we're going to be featuring in this top 5 have monochromatic LCD screens, which means your cure times will be somewhere between 1.8 and 2.5 seconds, generally speaking. There's a lot to it. Run the cones of calibration, links to it in the description down below. And if you want to go learn more about the cones, you can listen to our interview of Ty from Table Flip Foundry. It was a pretty cool interview. And at 120 watts max, these things absolutely sip power. Because remember, resin printers are only actually utilizing a fair bit of power when the UV light is on. And if it's only on for a couple of seconds every layer, you're fine. It's not gonna heat up your house or anything like that comparative to how an FDM printer would. And if you are looking for my top 5 FDM printers under $500, we'll card to that video so you guys can take a look at it. We'll also link to it in that description down below. But at 5760 by 3600 pixels, that's a lot of pixels. And while a lot of us will say at a certain point, more pixels does not equal more better, you can certainly pick up more detail on the models. Seriously, it's kind of insane. When your horizontal resolution is 34 microns, you're dealing with a part that will come off the printer pretty much dead smooth to the naked eye, which is amazing, especially if you're doing really high detail stuff. But at number 5, it's not our top choice. Number 4, we have the Phrozen Sonic Mini 4K and 8K. They're the same basic printers, just one has a 4K screen, one has an 8K screen. I feel like we can get past this with these machines. The 4K does come in at a much lower price than the 8K, and you do lose some print volume with the 4K, but if you're on a budget, it is much more affordable right now. At $380 for the Mini 4K and about $450 for the 8K, if you are trying to save a couple of bucks and you're willing to deal with the smaller build volume, it's absolutely worth it to me. It comes in at 134 by 75 by 130 millimeters. So a much smaller printer, roughly in this category here. And the Mini 8K at 165 by 72 by 180 is a larger build volume, especially in that Z-axis. You're not gonna really notice a ton of difference at the smaller printing size. So if you are trying to save a couple of dollars, you can go ahead and go with the smaller version. Phrozen is known for having a pretty good ecosystem when it comes to dealing with their machines. However, they're not as popular as ones from Anycubic or Elegoo. They get great remarks, and they were the first to have an 8K resin printer that I'm aware of, and they were the first to have 8K resin, which I didn't think was gonna be any different, but yeah, it kind of is. My buddy Danny from 3D Printing Tabletop, he is the 3D Printing DM, actually did a video talking about these different resins and found that the 8K resin was actually quite a bit better, which is kind of crazy. But Phrozen is known for making really big printers as well. We'll get to that in just a little bit. But at those two budgets, I think those machines solidly put themselves into 4th place. It's not too expensive, it's not too cheap, and if you want really high pixel density, a small printer at 8K resolution is a pretty tough deal to get past. And here's the cool thing to note. All things being the same, smaller resin printers will generally print the same amount of speed as larger resin printers, give or take. You are only limited by your Z height when it comes to print time. So if you have one model on your build plate versus 100, it will take the same amount of time because every single layer is exposed at the same time. But at 50 watts of power, these are considerably less power draw. So if you are in an area with a very expensive power rate per kilowatt hour, you might want to go with a smaller machine to save some money on that power bill. There are accessories as well to consider with resin 3D printers. Things like the Wham Bam Slat Mat. Use code Musketeers 2022 through the end of 2022 to get 10% off your order. Those are big silicone mats that go underneath your resin printer or your support cleaning station so that if, or more likely when, you have a spill, you don't get resin all over your work surface, and instead it is on a silicone mat with raised edges so it doesn't make a massive mess. Because remember, resin is toxic. Coming in at the number 3 spot is the Anycubic Photon M3 Plus. There's a lot of machines in the Photon line, and there is now the M3 line. They've got the Premium, the Max, the Regular, and the Plus. The Plus to me has the best bang for the buck. You get a little bit of extra goodness for only a little bit of extra money. Coming in at about $450 US right now, it is a pretty good value of a machine. But the M3 Plus is pretty power hungry at 144 watts, and it does have some decent space to it at 197 by 122 by 245 millimeters, putting it squarely in the mid-size resin printer market. Being a 6K resolution means if you are willing to spend some extra cash, it is generally a better value over the Photon Mono X6K, in my opinion, just because it is a newer machine and they're going to support it for longer. This is kind of the problem with companies that release a lot of printers. They have a tendency to just stop supporting the old ones, so be careful when you buy. It is also the first printer in our lineup with smart filling. You actually put a bottle of resin with a tube in it behind the printer, and it will pump resin to refill the vat. There is nothing worse than coming back to a failed resin print because you forgot to top off your resin. And a lot of these larger printers come with refilling abilities from the factory. Now, do note, it can be a real pain in the keister to flush out that system if you do decide to change colors. But in my opinion, at the price a lot of these printers tend to land at, it is actually just cheaper to buy a couple of printers or a couple of vats with a couple of those filling units, because I am certain you can buy those separately. I do like that about the M3 Plus, and it is why it hits our number 3 spot. Before we get to number 2, though, I have to tell you about today's sponsor, 3D Musketeers. If you are looking to do resin 3D printing but don't want to deal with the mess, because remember, resin is toxic, you can reach out to the pros at 3D Musketeers. We've been resin printing for quite a few years now and know a thing or two about stuff and things when it comes to resin printing. Now, we don't have some of the largest machines that we're going to be talking about, so stay tuned for those, but we do have mid-tier resin printers and offer pretty aggressive pricing, I would say, in the market of resin printing. And when you know you get it from 3D Musketeers, it's going to be done by professionals, it's going to be accurate, it's going to be supported properly, and you're going to get your parts the way that you want. And if we do happen to have some failures, you'll get those as well for no additional charge, so that you're able to do things like practice your painting, practice your finishing, whatever you might need to do on it. We use high quality resins from quite a few manufacturers, including Meyer Makes and Soraya Tech, to ensure that we have consistent quality for all of our machines. Whether you're looking for biocompatible resins or you're looking for the generic stuff, we got you covered here at 3D Musketeers. We also offer high-end 3D scanning with our tech products, so if you are looking to get some awesome 3D scanning done, you can reach out to us. Links will be in that description down below. But if you do want to kick a couple of bucks into that creator fund and you're not looking to get any 3D printing done, you can do so at Patreon or YouTube channel memberships. Of course, links below as well. If you're not really looking to spend any money, but you do want to support the channel, a like, comment, share, and of course, subscribe. Helps a long way to continuing the growth of this channel. So one day, we could maybe have sponsors that aren't our own. At the number 2 spot, we have the Elegoo Mars 3 Pro. It is very similar to this. This is the OG Elegoo Mars, a LCD resin printer, which is kind of crazy to me that these things even still work. But the Elegoo Mars 3 not only changes the look of it to be quite a bit sleeker, but also has a pretty decent sized build volume. That is 143 by a little under 90 by 175 millimeters, bigger than this printer in every dimension. And at under 300 bucks, that's a great value of a resin printer. You'll notice that the top 2 are both actually Elegoo printers. I prefer Elegoo as a brand. Their machines have ran very well for me over the years, and anytime that I had issues, Elegoo was absolutely phenomenal to work with when it came to customer support. And that is a big deal for me, not only as a hobbyist, but as a business owner, because I just need this stuff to work. Make sure that when you buy your machine, you get some spare FEP film that is either cut to size or a big sheet and you cut it down yourself. You can also look at getting some really awesome stuff like this material from TNH Tabletop over in Germany. They sent me a couple of sheets to play around with, and we're gonna be having an upcoming video because they claim that their material is better than FEP. I don't know, but I'm gonna take a look because I'm kind of curious. And FEP is really cheap and really easy to replace. We did a whole video on it. We'll card to it so you guys can take a look as well. It's a great thing to do. But the Mars 3 also started to come with an internal USB port. Now, before you think around, why would I want to plug in my USB interior? You don't, because it's 24 volts. For some reason, in all of their wisdom, Elegoo decided that including USB as their interface option, but putting like 12 or 24 volts through it was the right move. I'm the first to tell you, it's not, and you should not do that. But it does have an integral activated charcoal filter. Resin is really stinky, especially when you get up into the engineering resins. It can be really stinky. Don't forget, resin is toxic. Hopefully you're not playing that drinking game of you take a drink every time Grant says resin is toxic. Gonna have a bad time or a good time. I'm not you. But that will absolutely help with the smell that comes off of the resin. I find that Soraya Tech resin is one of the most pleasant smelling resins. It's not as pungent or as nasty as some of the others, although Soraya Tech Blue is absolutely atrocious. Their fast series of resins seem to work very well for us. but we do whole room VOC filters because we have 11 resin printers in one room, and it is pretty much required. Now, we are working on a product called the Politician because it filters and produces hot air. And the idea of the Politician is that it fits inside of your resin printer. In fact, I have designed it to fit inside on the back side back here of an OG Elegoo Mars. And it will not only heat your enclosure, but also filter it through a charcoal filter so that you can get temperature control as well as, hopefully, less stink. And yes, this can be used for FDM printers. Stay tuned. I want to talk about honorable mentions. And you know, the Prusa fanboys got to come out of the woodwork. The SL1S Speed from Prusa. It is one of the most expensive resin printers by volume on the market until you start looking at the hardcore professional ones. But it is one of the best built machines out there. It is about the size of Elegoo Mars or so, somewhere in that range. It does use a mono screen, but it can do layers as low as 1 second. It is much faster than other machines on the market, and it has a resin tank that actually dips down, that aids in the peel forces, which gives you better accuracy on your layers. Is it worth the $2,000 price tag? I don't think so, not for hobbyists. And it's not designed for hobbyists. It's designed for businesses that want reliability, which it absolutely provides. And it also has an amazing software that comes with it, Prusa Slicer, which is open source. All of these machines come with Chi2Box, and everybody hates Chi2Box, and that's why you should use Lychee Slicer. We'll have links to them in that description down below as well. But at $2,000, you can get pretty much every printer on this list, and you might even have some money left over. Be aware of that. We also have the Elegoo Jupiter, Elegoo's big chungus of a resin printer, one of the first to have a massive resin printer, and these things are huge. At $1,300 US, you might think, Grant, that's a very expensive resin printer. It is, but it is also huge. It is 277 by 156 by 300 millimeters, okay? Let me put that into perspective for you. This printer has 155 millimeters on the Z. The smallest dimension of the Elegoo Jupiter is larger than the largest dimension of this printer. Just let that go through your mind a little bit. So if you're looking to make huge resin parts that will take a ton of resin, Elegoo Jupiter is a great option. Phrozen also has their Sonic Mega 8K, which is the only and first 8K massive resin 3D printer on the market. There is also machines from Peopoly or Peopoly, I really don't know how to pronounce their company name, that made it onto the list. Basically anything that you can get from Peopoly are great machines, but they are all over $500. So highly recommend their machines if you are looking to spend a little bit more money. I think Peopoly really goes after the more prosumer market, kind of the similar market that Prusa goes after, but they're still playing on the we're not exactly prosumer price range. There are, of course, lots of options above that $500 price point. So do your research. I would say if you're buying from Phrozen, Anycubic, Elegoo, or Peopoly, you're really not gonna go wrong with the machines that you choose when it comes to resin printers. Because ultimately, there's not a whole lot different between this machine and this machine, other than the color of their freaking enclosures. They both have dual Zs, they both have lead screws, and a lot of the newer machines come with ball screws. They might have better interfaces. I know the Anycubics generally have their USB in a little bit of a better area, but companies are always looking to change that up. But remember, they all can use Lychee Slicer, and that is my preference for slicers. We will be having a lot of videos coming out about Lychee Slicer in the new year, so get subscribed if that's something that you guys want to see. But I know you all are here to hear about the #1 spot, and it is Elegoo, and it is the Saturn. The Elegoo Saturn 8K. This is one of the OG Elegoo Saturns. This is a 2K machine, and I love my Saturns. They work really well, they're consistent, the quality is dependable and predictable. It's why I love the Saturns. And they just chew through Soriatech resin like it's nobody's business. I wish Soriatech would have sponsored this video. I reached out to them. They denied, but man, it's a lot of free press, Soriatech. Love you guys. The OG Elegoo Saturn, which you can get for like sub $200, by the way. Great deal if you're looking to spend very little money. OG Saturns are still good machines. The 8K is obviously going to be a lot better, but the OG is 192 by 120 by 200. The 8K is 219 by 123 by 210. So it is bigger in every single dimension than the OG Elegoo Saturn. And at sub $500, and a lot of times well under $500, currently it's $475 on Amazon. That is a screaming deal. I remember pre-ordering both of my Saturns at $500 a piece, thinking I was walking away with an absolute steal of a printer, and I still believe that I was. In this day and age, an 8K mid-range printer for sub $500 is going to be a very, very tough deal to beat. One of the nice features about the Saturn 8K is that it has a cutout in the back for a fan should you want to exhaust the fumes out of your machine, rather than the deal with a lot of the BS of trying to filter out your entire room. But not everyone has that availability to do so, whether you don't have a window in the room you're in, or you don't have some sort of way to vent it out into atmosphere. You just kind of have to deal with it sometimes. It does come with the activated charcoal filter. It does not have autofilling, but I think the autofilling is honestly more work than it's worth, to be honest. But it does have the activated charcoal filter in it, which for these larger machines is pretty much a necessity. I think with my experience of the OG Saturn and only seeing Elegoo grow as a company, and not only their resin line, but their FDM line has been amazing. They have had top 3 placings in both resin and FDM in the sub $500 category. And honestly, even if you up your budget of resin to $2,000, my stats really don't change. I mean, obviously the Jupiter and the Sonic Mega 8K end up in that list, so some of the smaller printers get thrown away, but I would still put the Saturn at my top spot. They're a good size of a machine, and physically it is smaller than the Anycubic variant of it. And I find that that compactness goes a long way for me to fit more on shelves. They're really easy to use, they're easy to service, and the ecosystem is pretty easy to work with. I got nothing but good things to say about them. I've loved my Elegoo Saturns, and I think you would love yours as well. So if it's something that you'd like to pick up, links of course will be in that description down below. Let me know what you guys thought of my top 5 resin 3D printer picks of 2022 under $500 in those comments below. Be curious if you think I missed any. I'm always looking for more options and more machines to play around with. But that's all I have for you guys today. Stay safe out there. Don't forget to call your loved ones. And as always, keep making awesome. Have a good one. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching this video, and a massive thank you goes out to all of our Patreon and YouTube channel member supporters whose names are listed right next to me at the $5 tier and higher. Thank you all for making these videos possible. If you want to help make these videos possible, you too can join our Patreon or YouTube channel membership by clicking the links in that description down below. Right below me will be our top 3D printers in the FDM category for 2022. And right next to that will be the entire Print Fix Friday series, where we do feature quite a few resin 3D printer fails. I will see you all down in those comments and in the next one. Take care.